mountain closed that day. We evacuated the donkeys that day, and we took a few items, to be down in the off the mountain for a few days. And we went down, and the fire just kept going. That fire didn't reach us for a week. It took 7 days to get into Big Santa Anita Canyon. So we didn't imagine that when we evacuated that we would not be coming back for a couple of months. We just thought, maybe max a week.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast. Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you're from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We do appreciate it. If you are new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you are a returning listener, thank you very much for spending this time with us. Well, Scott, it's no secret that you and I share this enjoyment of hiking. We've talked about the hike that we do frequently, that we're going to do tomorrow. And Diego, I hope you're going to be there. But there are so many other trails in the San Gabriels, and another one that I know that you like is Mount Wilson Trail. But have you had a chance to explore other places in the San Gabriel Mountains?
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, we're going to talk about Chantry Flats today. Mm-hmm. I've been there, not for a number of years, but it's been one of my favorites as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spent, until the idea of today's guest came up, I didn't realize how much time I had spent there as an adult, but also as a Boy Scout. So many trips there, overnight trips, staying at Hoagie's, and I was like, wow, I was there quite frequently as a
What
a
is
child.
Hoagie's?
It's a backpacking camp. I'm pretty sure it's from Chantry. Like, you would leave from Chantry, and you can only access it, with hiking into it, but you can camp and stay there overnight. Yeah.
What's unusual about going there is that you drive into, you park in a park, I guess, in a state park. Is it a national park? I'm
yes.
not sure. And then you walk a lot on cement before you get to the trail.
On one trail. I mean, there's other paths that you can take.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely been a favorite of mine. But as I said, I haven't been there for a number of years. Was it closed during, for a lengthy period during COVID?
So the Bobcat fire that ravaged the San Gabriel Mountains went through that area, and we'll learn more about what happened there. But it had been closed, I believe, since 2020. And so some of my favorite hikes, like Sturdivant Falls and Hermit Falls, they've been inaccessible. And
I'm sorry. And I remember a helicopter landing pad somewhere up there.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much history there. There's so much history, and I'm really excited to hear from our guest today. So, but before we get into our guest, and let me thank Paris Baguette for providing these refreshments for us and our guests. We do appreciate it. They're very tasty, and I always like to see the guests' joy on their face when they realize that they can receive a whole box rather than having to choose one. So go check them out, Paris Baguette in San Gabriel. Say hi to Jason and Grace for us. Well, let me introduce today's guest. Today we're speaking with a woman who swapped her desk for the wilderness, a rookie to the rugged, but a veteran in leadership. Up in the San Gabriel Mountains, deep in the Angeles National Forest, there's a place where donkeys are the main movers, hauling groceries and gear up steep mountain trails. Our guest today didn't just take over this unique gig, she owns it, managing a team of the toughest employees, donkeys. When wildfire nearly wiped out her new dream off the map, she didn't just rebuild, she turned it into a beacon for community gathering and conservation. So sit back, relax, and dive into a story of grit, donkeys, and outdoor beats. Join me in welcoming the trailblazing, firefighting, donkey packing leader of Adams Pack Station, Maggie Moran. Maggie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What an introduction.
Well, yeah. So I'm excited because this place has a special meaning to me. But this show is really about you and your journey in the San Gabriel Valley. So let's start with what is your connection to the SGV?
So I moved into Sierra Madre in 2000, the year my daughter was born. I was pregnant with her, and I never left. Sierra Madre is a beautiful little town that I was so grateful to raise my daughter in, and so even though we moved either to Altadena for a little while and into Arcadia in her high school years, the foothills of the San Gabriels have been where I've spent the majority of my life, and my daughter grew up there as well. So the mountains, it's hard to not be called by them when you're so close to them, but it was back then that I really fell in love with the outdoors and being on the trails.
And Sierra Madre is a unique town or city in the San Gabriel Valley.
Right.
Can you share a little bit about why?
Yeah, it is tucked in up against the mountain between Pasadena and Arcadia. So you can't get to it directly off the freeway. You have to drive a little bit in town, probably about a half a mile before you enter into Sierra Madre. It's not a very big town, and we have a lot of wonderful small towns just on the foothills throughout the San Gabriels. Sierra Madre is, I think, a little smaller than all of them and has a very, very small community knit feel. So for those who live there, those who come and stay there, you start realizing that you're in a pretty magical place where people come together when needed, and that's what I've experienced, and that's why we've stayed.
Yeah. I've heard it described as like a sleepy mountain town.
Sleepy mountain town?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah, and I only would recognize what that would be like. My father lived in Running Springs, and so it does have like a mountain town vibe to it. But I think what many people may be familiar with is like all these news video of bears. Like you guys have lots of bears in town, right?
Yeah, I guess that's what gives the town some recognition, some bears, so the wildlife, So yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, I feel like there are more bears in Sierra Madre than there are on the mountain where I am. So.
Yeah, I actually have never seen one out in the mountains up in Chantry before.
They're definitely there, but we don't have the amount of trash or swimming pools that the community has down below.
I see. And you said you moved to Sierra Madre in 2000. So where are you from originally?
I'm from Sacramento. I moved in 1998 to Los Angeles to play mariachi. So I play the violin and sing. And I came out here from Sacramento just, as a 22-year-old, not knowing what I was going to do, just wanted to play. And I stayed out here. And in 2000, when I had my daughter, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in LA. I hadn't really quite found a comfortable place for myself. And when Sierra Madre was the option, I just decided this is where I'm staying. So yeah, Sacramento, I grew up there, and my whole family still lives there. So I go very often to visit.
Were you able to play mariachi when you arrived here?
I've played for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's that like?
It's beautiful. It's a part of my culture. I learned how to play violin in elementary school, high school. My parents are musicians, and I'm grateful. They forced us to play, and I'm grateful for it. And I say that in all of, when you think about when parents make you do stuff, that's one thing that I am totally for. If you could get your child into music, I feel like that's one of the things most people say, oh, I wish I would have picked up, whatever, ? Guitar, violin, trumpet, saxophone. And so I was not really that interested in it until I was an adult, and I had an opportunity to start playing in an all-female group in Sacramento, and that was the beginning of what has helped me get through my adult life as a supplemental income, and so grateful for it. So the music is beautiful, getting to celebrate so many events with strangers is beautiful, and sometimes you connect with people, and you meet people through that avenue. And I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to do it in LA, because here there were just so many more opportunities. In Sacramento, it was the first all-female group ever there when that group was started that I played in. And now you see so many more females playing, and it's so wonderful. And I'm when I go back to Sacramento, sometimes I think, it'd be great to be here now and be a part of that here. But I've been a part of it in LA, and it's grown even in LA since when I started in 98 out here.
Yeah, I've typically thought of, or when I hear mariachi, I think, the guys in the black suit, and I'm thinking, have I ever seen a woman in there? And I don't think that I have.
Yeah, I mean, if you start looking at mariachis, you'll start seeing more females definitely in the mix of all of it. I mean, there are quite a few more female groups and females within groups, and so I'm just happy. I'm happy to see that, and it's definitely has been a male-dominated music avenue, but now it's really incorporated the female voice, and it's almost like people would call me up and say they want a female, can you come play? So sometimes it's just something that people really see as it's a little bit different. There are a lot of female mariachi or females that sing mariachi style music in the main industry, but you just hadn't seen it in groups.
Do you sing?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
my
you
dad
play
sings,
the violin?
I play the violin. Yeah, I play guitar too, but that's that's not in mariachi. In mariachi, I just played violin.
What are the instruments in mariachi?
So a mariachi, I would say a complete set at its smallest would be, I guess maybe not so complete, but at its smallest, you would typically get 2 violins, 2 trumpets, a bass, which is called a guitarrón, which is that big bass-looking thing, and a vihuela, which looks like a very small bass, but it's the same shape, and 2 trumpets. I don't know if I said that already, but so that's 6 elements. If you really kind of get into a different genre of music in mariachi, you can add a harp, and that gets into a different style that you can really utilize. And so some mariachis have harps, and it's a full sound. But mariachis who are show mariachis, they'll have 6 violins on its own and 3 trumpets, so that if a trumpet player is singing, you still have 2 full trumpets playing, a guitar, a vihuela, and a guitarrón, sometimes multiple rhythm instruments like 2 guitars or 2 vihuelas, just so that they still have the full sound when somebody else is up front singing. So it just depends. It depends on what you're hiring, who you're hiring, and what level of mariachi.
Is that pure Mexican, or does it go back to another place?
Yeah, mariachi is traditionally Mexican style of music, derived in Jalisco and Guadalajara, but there's different regions of Mexico that are represented in the music of mariachi anyway. So it is, but you'll find mariachis in South America, you'll find mariachis in China, you'll find mariachis in Japan. It's very interesting how you will see groups develop in other countries, because it's such a beautiful style of music.
I think I saw a piece you were singing Llorona online.
Yeah, that was for one of our events, for our Dia de los Muertos event. That was actually our, was it our last? Might have been one of our last events that we put on as a fundraiser event.
Okay, but that was you singing it.
That was me singing it, yeah. I was playing the guitar on that.
I thought so, okay,
yeah,
that's right.
Like little snippet just to kind of get the pictures of our altar, a little bit of mood.
So you had your daughter here, you stayed in Sierra Madre, and you said that you were drawn to the mountains.
Yeah, I didn't grow up camping. I didn't grow up going into the outdoors. In Sacramento, we don't really have mountains there, and just our lifestyle wasn't of the outdoors. And I went to Humboldt State right out of high school, and fell in love with the mountains. I mean, you've got redwoods and the ocean is right there. Arcata is such a beautiful little town, another small little town along the coast. And I knew there that I needed to kind of get myself in the outdoors a little bit more. So being out there, I started hiking around in Arcata. Then I moved back to Sacramento for a slight minute, maybe like 6 months before I moved to LA, maybe close to a year before I moved to LA. And not until I moved to Sierra Madre was when I started exploring the trails. And I mountain biked for a while and, would follow friends that were much higher level than I was and got myself into fun situations.
Mountain biking or hiking?
Mountain biking. Yeah. Yeah. And that was really a lot of fun. And I quickly realized that I might not do that for very long. I was probably doing too much at once to feel like I was keeping myself safe. I think my thrill of it was very short-lived, and when I fell off my bike. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll keep in the mountains in a different way. So kudos to all those, thrill seekers on those mountain trails, because they're narrow mountains and they're not nothing kind of falls. So, but
did you have gear on? Did you have protective gear?
Yeah, I had protective gear on. So but still, even then,
Did you go off the side?
I went forward over my bike.
Oh, wow.
And hit, kind of landed on a rock. Thought I broke my chest. I don't even know. I wasn't. That was the first thought I had in my mind. Lost, of course. Got winded, lost my breath, and was incredibly achy and bruised. But I survived it just fine. And when I went back to ride, I just was too afraid, and I was like, that's gonna hurt me. Not getting over that fear of having fallen already. I wasn't afraid until I fell. And so I just kind of moved into a different direction, which, I started to hike more frequently. I was in Sierra Madre. I hiked Mount Wilson Trail all the time, Bailey Canyon Trail, which are both in Sierra Madre, both beautiful and both pretty tough. So it was a great workout. It was a good way to kind of cleanse my soul, which is what the outdoors does for me. And I would see people I knew on the trail all the time, which kept me going. It's almost like your community is everywhere. So that's, and then somewhere around 2010, I joined a trail group, a trail running group, and I started running, and that was it. I was like, I am a trail runner. I love to hike still, and I do that a lot, but trail running, the combination of the outdoors, and I think the endorphins you get from running, and the accomplishment of, that kind of a workout was a really good combination for me. I've been doing that for years. I've done a little less of that lately, just because life has been a little bit different, but it's still something very enjoyable. And I will now only really run significant distances on the trails, not on the streets anymore.
Trail running is pretty intense.
Yeah.
Like really intense. Like you I would imagine that you can work out some really difficult things, pushing yourself like that for a long period of time.
Right.
When you say trail running, are you running uphill?
So there's both. There's running uphill, downhill, some, a little bit of roller coaster style running on the trails. It just depends on which trail. So if I were to run up Mount Wilson Trail, you would just see me run, hike. I would not be able to, and some people can, but me in particular, I can't run straight up that mountain. It's pretty steep.
That's the one I used to run up to First Water.
Yeah, that one.
I would start down at, what's that place, like Lizzie's?
Yeah, Lizzie's Inn.
Yeah, Lizzie's Inn. So I would start there. So I got all that going up, and I would go to First Water. But I would generally not go beyond that.
Well, First Water, that part of the trail it's pretty steep. A lot of people use Mount Wilson Trail to train for Mount Whitney because, you're going up to about almost 6,000 feet of elevation at the top of Mount Wilson, and that's intense, like within 7 miles. Mm-hmm. So from the bottom of Sierra Madre to the top of Mount Wilson is 7 miles, and that's a good elevation gain. for anybody, even for those who are already well trained in going up a mountain. So I mean, we've had a lot of goals of running without stopping to first water. There's sometimes you have to just take a couple on those switchbacks, man. You just have to do a steady hike and then get yourself back to your heart rate down a little bit and then start running again.
And now they have the new trail too.
Yeah,
halfway up.
That's right.
Yeah, which is a bit harder too, I think.
Yeah, so there's so many connectors. Man, our mountain ranges are just amazing. How much you can connect. You could start on one side of San Gabriel and end up on the other and never get off the mountain. So it is a beautiful range of mountains that has been developed for the people to use. So grateful to be in it.
Do you compete in the Mount Wilson Trail Race?
I don't. That is, I don't. I support it wholeheartedly. Many of my friends run it. I like doing a lot more long distance with like the ability to have space. Like a lot of my running, a lot of what I get from running is being able to have a lot of time to myself. And although I do run in races that are long distance around the community, short distance races I can run, but I need my space a little bit to feel comfortable and kind of make it for what running means for me. Sure. So it is a wonderful event that happens in our community that it is always so great to support. As a matter of fact, they have supported the pack station since we've been closed, allowing us to have a booth there to talk about the pack station and what we've been going through, to sell our fundraiser shirts and other items. And this year I'll sing the national anthem for the event, and I have in the past. And they're just such supporters of their community and of the pack station. And although Chantry Flats is not officially in Sierra Madre, they've pretty much adopted us as and if we talk a little bit about the history of packing in these mountains, there used to be a pack station in Sierra Madre, and it was taken over. All the animals in the last pack station in Southern California were bought out by somebody once that road that to Chantry was built and taken up to Chantry. And there were, at that point, no more pack stations. There was no more of a pack station in Sierra Madre since 1936. So,
what is a pack station?
So a pack station is for us, it's a business that we currently only have donkeys. A lot of pack stations in the Sierras have donkeys, maybe not even as many donkeys, but mostly mules and horses, since they are a larger animal. But we only have donkeys. So when we bought the pack station, it only came with donkeys, even though in the past they've had the other animals. And these donkeys at Chantry, since there are cabin owners who own cabins in the canyon, can only get to their cabins by foot. They have to come, if they want to have anything of significant weight taken into the mountains, they bring it to where they could drive all the way to us at the pack station, which is located at Chantry Flats. And they drop it off to us, and we arrange all of it. And once it's dropped off to us, I choose a day I'm going to go in and pack these items onto the donkey. So I weigh everything, I charge by weight, by pound, and I place them on the donkeys evenly, weighted on each side so that it's balanced. And the donkeys, we set them all up. I usually take 5 or 6 donkeys when I'm by myself, and I hike into the mountains leading the donkeys as me hiking with the lead rope. And I take them in, I drop these items off to the cabin owners and leave them off wherever. They're usually not there. Leave them off wherever they ask me to leave them off, and they've got their delivery. I'll pick up stuff on my way out, like empty propane tanks, sometimes trash, whatever people want packed out.
So I remember the cabins. Is there just one location? I seem to remember maybe 20, 30 cabins. Or
Before the fire, we had 81
cabins.
Back in the 20s, there were, I think, approaching 300 cabins in the area. It was a very highly occupied mountain and canyon. And so now, after the fire, we have 64 cabins that have 17 cabins burned.
Now, those are individually owned?
Yes.
Oh, so they can be bought and sold, those cabins.
Yeah.
And do people rent them out? Do the owners rent them out, or do they actually live there?
The owners do not, they're not allowed to rent them out, and they're also recreation cabins, so they're not allowed to actually live there permanently. They're supposed to have another address. And I know in history there have been people, and early on a lot of people did live down there. Before the road to Chantry Flats was built in 1936, people had to come and hike from Sierra Madre just to get to Chantry, just to get down into the canyon to get to their cabins. And so they had their homes there and lived there, and it was a community that they had a post office, they had other resorts there that had dining halls, dance halls. They had pretty much whatever a community might need for their happiness in the mountains.
Are those cabins equipped with running water?
So some cabins have a permit to have water plumbed in from a spring, which could be nearby their cabin, and other cabins don't have that permit, mostly because a spring might not be available where their cabin exists. And so some cabins have no water availability. They'd have to haul in their water, and other cabins do. So it just depends on the cabin. No cabin has electricity. They're all pit toilets currently, and everything is most things are either people will have propane tanks for whether it be heating, or there are propane refrigerators that are in there. And
how big are they?
The refrigerators?
The cabins.
Oh gosh,
I'm trying to remember approximate size.
Yeah, so they range in like so widely, because we're talking the last cabin that was given a permit and built was in the middle of the 1930s, so somewhere between 1936 and 37, maybe 38, but that was it. After that, nobody received a permit to build a cabin. And so all these cabins are that age and older, and they were allowed to build their cabins as needed. So people built literal four-wall cabins, and some people built cabins with kind of on a hillside with a bottom floor, a ground floor, and an upper level, kind of like a loft. And then you have cabins with different bedrooms. You have cabins with kitchens, some with not. So it just depends on which cabin you're looking at. So
when did you take over the pack station?
My husband and I bought the pack station in December of 2019. I went into escrow with the owner to purchase the place in April of 2019. So at that point, I started running the pack station and the store that comes with it in the parking lot in April of 2019, and the purchase was complete in December of 2019.
And then when COVID hit, that shut things down? Or
for a little while. So we were running the place as we just kind of came in and kept going the way it was run. And most of December, January, February, and March were a typical time of that year for us and the pack station. And at the end of March is when everything, maybe the world, shut down, and the Forest Service shut down the mountains. So all of April and all of May, no one was allowed to go into the mountains. Everything was closed. Everybody was just, asked to stay home, figure out how to get their food in the safest way possible, and that was it. So nothing, absolutely nothing, I don't have to explain it, everybody went through it, was open. And so we were closed for April and May, but in June or end of May, it was decided, okay, maybe people need something. So the forest opened up, and places like Eden Canyon, just west of us, had a reservation system that they put together. So it was very limited there. We didn't have a reservation system. It was just open. And because it's a very accessible area to get to. Only 3 miles from Sierra Madre, you can get to our parking lot and enter into this, beautiful place. 2 miles in is a waterfall and just a creek, and so much to do when there's nothing else to do. We were slammed. June came, and my husband and I were like, every day was like a weekend, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna pay this place off in 2 years, and we were just so excited. And there was a lot, that was happening in this world at that time. But for us, our silver lining was that we had an abundance of people coming, and we had, we couldn't sell food, but we had packaged goods, we had drinks, we had our parking lot. We were still packing for the people who were in their cabins, which they spent more time in their cabins because everybody was off of work and no one was working in an office anymore. So people went to their cabins and used them even more. So we were just like busy. It was nuts. It was a little overwhelming, but something we were still able to handle. And so June was amazing. July, somebody set a small fire on one of our trails, on First Water Trail going towards Hermit Falls, and that fire came all the way up to the pack station. I was packing, as a matter of fact. I was coming out of the trail with the donkey train that day. It was a Monday, and the canyon was filled with people. The parking lot was completely full. Parking was nuts. If anybody knows Chantry, that's kind of the way it had been in the past. And some people were playing with fireworks, set a fire, and it burned, I think, about either 7 or 11. So don't quote me on either, but one of those numbers. Acres, and it burned all the way to our parking lot. As a matter of fact, people were putting out fires in our parking lot. And people were trying to get out of the canyon. We had to turn around because the fire was blocking us, and we couldn't get out. And so we all ended up going down to the bottom of that concrete road, paved road you were talking about, to the bottom of that. We waited, and the moment I heard sirens, I felt like, okay, I'm not going to die. Because it was scary to see that fire go up the mountain like a freight train. That was the first fire in our canyon like that in many, many years. Not foreseeing what was about to happen. That was a very small fire that burned all the way around towards the pack station, all in front of our parking lot and a little bit behind it, and just burned all that fuel right in front of us on July, I believe it was July 21st, just after 4th of July. So that shut us down for a few weeks because they had to make sure that all the hot spots were out, and kind of they needed to assess the fire itself, and we were closed down for about 2 weeks there. So that took away from us a little bit. We opened up again, and then there was another fire called the Ranch 2 fire just east of us, and that closed us down for another couple of weeks. And because it wasn't that close, but close enough, they closed down the mountain so people don't end up in places they shouldn't be where a fire might be traveling. And that closed us down and stopped us, again in our tracks. And when we reopened after that closure, we were again happy to be open and happy that our situation was what it was. And on September 6th, the fire started at Cogswell Dam, and it wasn't anywhere near us. So, but for precautionary purposes, the mountain closed that day. We evacuated the donkeys that day, and we took, because we were living up there already, we took a few items, to be down in off the mountain for a few days. And we went down, and the fire just kept going. That fire didn't reach us for a week. It took 7 days to get into Big Santa Anita Canyon. So we didn't imagine that when we evacuated that we would not be coming back for a couple of months. We just thought, maybe max a week.
So your home, you were living near the cabins or where?
So at Chantry Flats, there is our pack station where a barn exists and our house exists. And the porch and everything in front of it is where we have the cafe. And behind the barn is a corral that goes up the hill where the donkeys run around most of the day. And so we lived there, and we lived there permanently. And we had moved in already some months before, just before COVID, and around that time we were getting ourselves all situated. And when the fire hit, we had put in our 30-day notice at the beginning of September to let go of our apartment finally.
Oh,
So,
well, going back to COVID, were you prevented from going to your home? Or during COVID, you were able to stay there?
Oh, yeah, we were able to stay there
even
since
though
we
it was
lived there.
but the mountains were closed?
Yeah, so they were closed to the general public.
Okay.
So they didn't want the general public to be close to each other. So they closed it at the gate at the bottom, which is 3 miles down from us.
Right.
And for us, we could be there. We lived there, and we could be in the mountains. Same with the cabin owners. They had full permission to go to their own cabins during that time, during COVID.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then during in September, the fire forced evacuation. You had to leave.
Right.
Okay.
So we had to leave. When we left for that first week, the fire hadn't even reached us yet. It was on its way. Once it hit Monrovia, that's when I started getting scared. That's when I thought, that's pretty close. And the percentage of what was contained was still pretty high that they hadn't contained, I should say. And so I didn't. I started feeling really kind of more. I'm more on the optimistic side kind of person, and I was starting to feel a little bit like we might be in a bad place. So once it hit Monrovia, and those who saw the fire the way I did in the evening, you saw like almost like the letter M hitting several ranges of the mountain, right behind Monrovia that were on fire, and it just kept going. Conditions were just for the fire perfect, where there wasn't very much wind, which was great because it wasn't a wind-driven fire. It was a fuel-driven fire, but what that meant is that smoke wasn't blown away, and they couldn't really see a lot, so visibility was tough, and fighting that fire was really hard. And they did an amazing job of doing what they were doing, but it made it right east of us at Clamshell Peak. And once it got there was really no stopping it. There's no way to fight it in Big Santa Anita Canyon.
And that's when you evacuated?
No, we evacuated the first day of the fire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
But you were gone a couple of months at that time?
Yeah, it started in September. We didn't get back into the mountain until the end of October. And it had come through us 7 days after. So I think the 13th, it came into the Big Santa Anita Canyon, where it came down Clamshell into the canyon itself. And then as it went up, it would hit around where the pack station is, because we're above the canyon floor, I should say, and then started moving towards Mount Wilson Observatory, so at the top of Mount Wilson. And then it just kept going from there, and it went out to Juniper Hills, I think is the area that where a lot of homes were burned, and almost made it to Wrightwood before they contained it. So it burned for a long time.
And that was the Bobcat fire?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were able to go back, but everything was closed?
Everything was closed.
Cabins were inaccessible?
Cabins were closed longer than for us, because the fire, there was a lot done because you could drive to us. There was a lot done by firefighters before the fire got to us. They did some prescribed burns before they got to us. They did some things to help mitigate fire coming. They turned sprinklers on. They did everything they could to save the pack station. And the combination of that and having had fuel already burned in front of us from the July fire, I've seen an aerial picture of the pack station, and everything around us was gray, and we had that patch of green where the trees were, where we were, and the fire literally went around us and kept going up the mountain towards Mount Wilson. So we were not we were in a position to be able to go back to the pack station without having the devastation that had happened in the canyon, where there were hot spots, there were trees falling, there were trees still burning from underground for a while. And it was just very dangerous for the cabin owners to be in there and go back to their regular visits to their cabins. So the Forest Service, they didn't allow them to go back right away.
So as I understand it, it's been closed since then, and it will reopen June 1.
Sometime in June. I'm hesitant to give an exact date, only because there's still construction happening between the Forest Service construction and the county construction. There's still that going on, where end dates are looking like at the end of May, so they may push it a couple of weeks. The Forest Service closure order ends on May 31st, which is a weekday, Friday actually. But it's very likely that it could be pushed a little bit. So I would recommend for anybody to look up the U.S. Forest Service website to see exactly when that's going to happen. And I've been told they will announce it, and I'm hoping that the goal is for us to know in advance as well, so that we can be ready with our staff, and anything we need to be prepared for, we can be prepared for before we open. We sell adventure passes for people to park there, and so that's really important for us to be ready for that day.
So has your cafe been closed?
Yeah.
Your store has been closed?
Yeah.
But you're still living there?
Still living there.
Mm-hmm.
And the one part of, really we have three parts of revenue. One is the cafe. The other is the parking lot itself, that is ours.
Oh.
There's a parking lot that is that is Forest Service, and the packing. So between those three, two of them have been shut down because we don't have the public in. And to survive on just packing is really difficult, very challenging, especially when a lot of construction, due to the fire, prevented us from being able to have a lot of business because cabin owners couldn't really get through a lot. So yeah, it's been a challenge.
Yeah.
It sounds like in hindsight that first fire was perhaps a blessing.
I love silver linings. I almost want to call it a thick mark, not even a lining, because some of these things that come to us that feel like, oh man, that really kind of get to you, to your core, sometimes end up being a blessing in disguise. And not that I condone that. I can see how things in life can, you can view them in a very different way if you let yourself see what, the outcomes of why things happen. And yes, it was really unfortunate that happened, and people could have died that day. That fire, people were going through that fire to get out, and it was incredible that nobody was hurt more than they were, besides maybe some vehicles and some land, but and it was very costly. But something like that, you don't foresee the benefits of things in life that happen. And it even took me a while to kind of say that turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I was just angry about fire. I was so, very much like just the idea of that those things can be prevented. And when it's different, like if it's a bolt of lightning that hits a tree that starts a fire, those are the kinds of things that you're like, man, what luck. But when you're talking about things that are man-made and things that could be prevented, it's really hard to swallow sometimes. But yeah, the silver lining of that is definitely the things that drive me these days, like and in general, because that's really, if I had a choice to think about anything, I'd rather think about the things that are bringing me good things than the things that are would take me down if I thought about them.
Yeah, I hope they caught those people.
I don't know. I actually don't know the outcome of that. I know there were witnesses, and I know that people saw it happen. So there was an investigation happening, but I don't know the outcome of that. And that's now going on 4 years too. So
yeah, I can't imagine what you must have been experiencing that week watching the fire come across. were you getting updates on your location, or when did you find out that the pack station had survived?
Yeah, so a couple of things. When the July fire hit, after that, the Forest Service had some extra funds due to that fire, kind of like emergency funds, maybe I don't know who it was through, maybe FEMA, I don't know. But the part that was the most concerning about that fire was the parking and how there was a gridlock in being able to get people in and out, more than anything out, but in for the fire department to come in. So after that, they hired 3 people to man the parking lot, and luckily I was one of those people. And so myself and 2 other gentlemen, we started maintaining the parking lot, where we would, if the parking lot was full, we would send people down, so that people, and let people know, if you park, A, B, and C, you're gonna get towed, you're gonna get a ticket. And that in itself did wonders for that parking. So, I was given a radio for the Forest Service, and that allowed me to be able to chime in when the fire was happening, to hear some things happening. And so this isn't anything that I would, it was just me. It wasn't like being broadcast to anybody other than me having the radio on. I couldn't chime in on the radio, and ask like, "Hey guys, how's it going?" What's the update? But it was really great to be able to kind of hone in on what was happening, and I started learning a lot about the verbiage of it all. And so that, and because I was still employed as not an actual employee, but kind of like a outside contracting employee, I was manning the gate at the bottom of Chantry, so that people wouldn't come up, because they were doing a lot there to work on doing some fire breaks and all of that. So I was one of the people down there, and I got to hear from people coming down. They knew I was also the owner of the pack station, and I would get updates that way. And I was really grateful for that position. Again, silver linings of when things happen, why things happen, and how I got to be in that position to have a lot of information as it was coming to us and as it was going through us in the canyon. And I felt very informed. It's sometimes scary to be fully informed, because it's happening, but sometimes you imagine worse things if you don't know. So I got to know what was happening while it was happening, and I was really grateful for that. And I did as much as I could to communicate that to other cabin owners, and we were kind of all in the same place, where everybody was very active and trying to keep up with the information while the fire was happening. So
yeah. Well, Maggie, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
I brought our fundraiser shirt, which we created right at the beginning of our closure, very close to the beginning. A friend of mine, one of my friends who I run with, actually came up with the idea. He's like, "Hey, do a fundraiser shirt. People love to have stuff, and they want to be able to support you in some way." And so we created a shirt, and it was really he was the one that kind of came up with the slogan, and we kind of played with it a little bit. But it's a T-shirt with a couple of oak trees, 2 donkeys, a helicopter dropping water on the mountains over the donkeys, and the sun behind the mountains. And is it okay to say what it says? Okay. It says, "Save our asses, Adams Pack Station Fundraiser Bobcat Relief." So this is the first shirt, the first generation. We've had a gray shirt, a long sleeve shirt, and this is the white T-shirt. And it's amazing how many people I see walking down the street wearing this shirt. And, people don't really know who I am. So I'm like, "That's my shirt." And people are like, what are you saying to me right now? So and it's just a testament to everything I've felt, in our community, how the community has really, this shirt to me, they have saved our asses, literally. They've come to our events. We've only been able to survive because people donated to a GoFundMe right off the bat. Like, it was like immediate. It was I wasn't sure about doing something like that. Didn't have any idea, which I'm grateful, we did, because I had no idea how long we'd be closed. I didn't foresee this kind of time that we would be closed. And that helped us for the beginning. A little bit of COVID relief helped us. And then we were off to like pushing 3 years, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're still going to be closed another year. When they threw another year on that closure, I had to get as creative as I could, and I got creative by asking my friends, what do I do? How do I do this? And when people come up with ideas, I am all for hearing what people, I can't think, especially in a time when you're a little bit stressed, you don't think of all the things other people can think of. And people start, I had a wonderful friend, Mike Comer, who was like, hey, have events. I'll have one up there for you so you could see how it works. And we did. And then that spawned our kind of catapulted us into having events up there. And we had a beers and burros, we had a wines and equines, we had a Dia de los Muertos event, we had live music, with some local bands to come up and play. And all the while people can come and hang out at the pack station in this beautiful environment. And we've done everything we could to make it very welcoming and beautiful up there. And they've all been wonderful events. We had an event at the Mount Wilson Observatory. So before I bought the pack station, I worked at the Mount Wilson Observatory, which was kind of my entry into working in the outdoors. And they allowed me to have an event in the 100-inch telescope dome, where we had a mariachi play in the 100-inch telescope dome. It was a concert, and it was for the Dia de los Muertos the year before that, and we raised a lot of money with that. And so grateful to the Mount Wilson Observatory, which is another part of our community above us at the top of the mountain that supported us. That whenever I have the opportunity, would want to support them and encourage others to do the same.
Yeah.
So,
it sounds like the community and your friends really stepped up to help get you through.
Yeah.
How many mules and donkeys do you have?
So we have only donkeys right now. We have 10. We actually just got 2 donkeys donated to us recently, who aren't packers yet.
Oh yeah.
But they're just getting acclimated with being with 8 other donkeys. It was a mom and a daughter. They're about 4 years old and 9 years old. And my oldest donkey is probably in his 30s. Oh. And donkeys live somewhere into their 40s.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
How much training do they need?
I'm working on that. I didn't work with animals ever before I bought the pack station. So all of this is a learning process for me. So having 2 new donkeys and figuring out how long it's going to be before they can pack is basically an experiment for me, because I've never done anything like this. So the ones that came with the pack station already broken in. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
They know what to do. They go into their stalls to eat. They are very well trained animals, very docile, very beautiful animals to work with. Yeah.
Well, Maggie, thank you for bringing that in and for sharing that with us. Can people still buy this shirt? Is it available?
We currently don't have any. We have a few smalls left at a restaurant in Sierra Madre called Emmy's in Sierra Madre. They have just, I think, maybe like 4 or 5 small T-shirts left. We've done 4 different purchases of these shirts, and it's a pretty big cost. And now that we're close to opening, we're always on the fringe of our financial well-being, and so we've been able to kind of just stay afloat with all these events. And we thought, we're just going to wait until we open again and we have an income coming to spend big on merchandise. So we don't have any. We probably won't have these particular shirts anymore. We'll come up with new merchandise and new things to be able to sell. Once we open, our asses will have been saved, and and we will come up with something. Anybody has any suggestions, I'm open.
Yeah. Well, Maggie, I want to get more into what is going on like in the day-to-day and what you have in store for when it does open. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
At Warmouth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Maggie. Maggie, before the break, you were sharing your Save Our Asses t-shirt, fundraising t-shirt with us. Before we get more into your story, when we come back from the break, we like to ask a question from this deck of cards called Icebreakers. And it's just for the audience to get to know us a little bit more.
Okay.
So here's the question. What was the worst haircut you ever had? And then before you answer it, I just want to say to the listening audience, like, you have tremendous hair. Like maybe you get that. Have you get that often? But
I get it every now and then. I have a lot of hair.
Yeah.
It's pros and cons to everything, right? But yeah, I'm grateful for it now. As growing up, sometimes you're just like. But.
Sure. So what's the worst haircut you ever had?
Oh, I would say, I've had a couple. So I'm trying to pinpoint. So I think I only look back in time and I'm thinking, what was I thinking? I want to say I was in the 4th grade. I chopped it all off. And to chop all your hair off with thick hair, you got to find somebody. And nobody's trying to do your hair when you're in the 4th grade. So it just got chopped off and it was just a puffy mess. And yeah, that was it. I mean, luckily back then I probably had less interest in what I look like. I think I was just tired of my hair. I don't even remember if it was my idea or somebody else's idea. I just look back and I'm like, wow.
Your class photo from 4th grade.
Yeah, some photos with friends, and luckily, half the time we cut each other's heads off in those pictures. But it was just like one of those moments where you're like, okay.
What about you, Scott?
Oh, you're looking at it right now. Yeah.
So share with the listening audience.
I'm going to get that barber. Okay. Come back in 3 months. It'll be normal.
So for the listening audience, if you're only listening, Scott does actually have hair.
Yeah.
So this is you don't like this haircut?
No, I like it actually. I mean, when I was 20, I didn't like it because it's a different time in your life, right? To not have hair.
Yeah.
But I mean, now I like it. I mean, I have had hair. I had normal hair, but when I was 20, 21, it all fell out. So I haven't had, normal hair since I was 21. But I like it better not having hair now.
Yeah.
Because it's so convenient.
Yeah.
But, back then I didn't like it.
The worst haircut, I think I used to shave my head once a year, like I think in high school, just for fun and for to change up, And when I look back, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I just appreciate having hair, right? I looked really aggressive. You just didn't look, Yeah, it just wasn't. I don't know. People would tell me too, you shouldn't shave your head, but I still did it. So. Anyway, if you're listening or watching online, what's the worst haircut you've ever had? Let us know in the comments. So Maggie, back to you. I'm so hopeful that it opens sooner rather than later, and I can't wait to go back up there. And people often talk about out-of-towners or bringing people to places in the SGV, and a place that I would take people is to Chantry and to take them to Sturdivant Falls or Hermit and show them the beauty that we have here. What are some of the things that you're hoping for when it opens?
So I know that when we do open, it's going to be big. There will be a lot of people that people have been waiting for this area to open. And what I do hope is that, people will come in and realize and remember, this was taken away from everybody for a long time. And it's easy to walk into a place and be just focused on getting to a place and walking out and not thinking about how you left it. So I'm really hoping that when people come, they really respect the area. And during COVID, we did have a lot of trash, a lot of stuff was left behind, and it's really unfortunate. But I do hope that when people do come, they can appreciate a lot more something that hasn't been available to them. You know, we've got this beautiful trail, this creek that is flowing. Oh my gosh. Like when we open, people are going to be astonished about how much water last winter just saturated our mountain. And what amazes me the most is that this mountain is not, the water is not coming from snow melt. It's in the mountain, and it just keeps coming out. And you know, it's abundant. It's clear. You see the rock in the bed of the creek, and there's the sound is just, it's so strong. And when people come, I just hope that they take the time to listen to it, to look around. You're going to see a lot of dead trees, and you're going to see a lot of stuff that just came alive. There's going to be a mixture of all of that, and taking it all in, knowing that this mountain just went through something very devastating and Mother Nature is bringing it back to life. You're going to see both of those things when you come through into the canyon. And I just want people to appreciate that. You know, we had a fire. It was very unfortunate, but those things do happen. But with that comes a lot of growth, you know, and our mountain has been cleaned up, and it's going to take a lot of years to get that kind of deadfall into our mountains again. So I feel actually very fortunate to have been a part of this mountain, you know, being cleaned up and now coming back to life. Like, I get to be a part of that. And so do the people coming in and getting to watch it at this point and moving forward. So, you know, I hope people think about that when they come in, because it is a place that should be filled with people. And that's what, you know, our mountains are for, and that's, we're all so close to it. And if you can be in the outdoors, be in the outdoors, you know?
Yeah. One of the things my scoutmaster, perhaps all scouts, I don't know, always did with us was to walk an area, or, you know, wherever we were camping or staying or hiking. And this idea, like, you have to leave it better than how you found it. Because, you know, as, you know, 12, 13-year-old kids are like, oh, that's not my trash. And like, yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's adults too, not just little kids.
You know, and I just remember that, like, over and over again. And then, you know, as you got older, and then the new kids come, and you're like, you're saying this thing to them. And then I think of, like, my own kids, right? Like, this idea, this may not be your trash, but this is your mountain. This is our mountain, our outdoors. And if you're not going to take care of it, you know, who's going to?
Right.
Yeah, there's not like this garbage service that goes out there every day and picks it all up.
No.
It's, actually, to see the graffiti is really sad.
Yeah, you know, I could say a lot about that, and it's unfortunate. It is. It really is. I think nature should be a place where you leave it as is and enjoy that, you know, because it's all of our right to be able to enjoy nature. And when you start tainting it, you take a little bit of that right away, you know, from people. So, you know, everybody has their different ideas about everything. And I think that if we could just all be on the same page about nature, that's one battle, you know, one in all of it in society. But yeah, nature should be something that we all get an opportunity to see as untouched as possible. Obviously, we're gonna touch nature with our feet, and, you know, with our just being there. But if we can leave it alone as best as we can, so that we can enjoy it in the way it's supposed to be, I feel like I hope we can all at some point get into that space. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Maggie, we're going to move on to the final segment of the show, where we get to learn about what you like to do in the San Gabriel Valley, aside from being up in the mountains. So, Maggie, this is what we call the SGV3, and we ask you to share your 3 favorite or most memorable places or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley. So, what would be number 1?
So, number 1 is a place in Sierra Madre called Emmy's Restaurant, Sierra Madre. and they are located right on Baldwin, kind of in the heart of the small town of Sierra Madre. And it's a restaurant owned by two local, a couple, Brittany and Matt, and they are culinary artists. They also own Poppy Cake, which is in Sierra Madre and Arcadia. So that kind of hits three, but but same owner. It's the food there is a notch above most places. They are chefs and bakers, so they have both for, I don't even know how to call it, so I don't want to like taint what it is, but Brittany was a wonderful baker. I don't know if that's what you call it. And so Poppy Cake is mostly a bakery, and they have these wonderful pastries, cakes, and they do sandwiches. They make everything in-house there. And Emmy's, they started the restaurant, and oh my gosh, the food is so good. Their burgers, their smash burger, I love their dressings in their salads, and they come up with these amazing drinks that they, put together there and have available, and they're a wonderful supporter of community. They also sell our shirts there. They have supported us in so many ways, and that's not the only reason why I love them so much, but that they do reach out, and they've done stuff for the community in that way. So yeah, wonderful place. Emmy's, you got to go there. You got to check it out.
Is that right on Baldwin?
It's right on Baldwin.
North of Sierra Madre?
It is north of Sierra Madre. I believe their address is 45.
Is that east or west?
It is on the west side of the street.
Okay.
So just when you pass Kirsting's Court, there are a few businesses going up, and then you hit Emmy's. It was remodeled previously to when they owned it in the front, and so it looks a little different than it used to.
Is it new? Because I don't remember seeing it before.
I think they're almost a year in.
Oh, okay.
They have owned Poppy Cake for some time now. It started in Sierra Madre, and they opened one in Arcadia. Emmy's is a restaurant, so it's kind of something different, even though they are the owners of all three. It's more food, it's dine-in type. And they've done a beautiful job with the restaurant itself, but yeah, very good food. They take that seriously, like from the breads to the sauces and everything in between. So
is that where the last place or the only place in town?
No, it used to be Beantown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yes.
The only place in town is in town. I mean, there's so many great places in Sierra Madre. So I mean, and I'll say the only place in town is another place. I mean, what a great name, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there. I could probably talk about all those things, all the places in Sierra Madre, because I go to them all. I'm a big fan of supporting my community as well. So when we eat out, we eat nearby.
And we've had a guest that owns a restaurant right there as well.
Row Fusion.
Yeah, Row Fusion.
Oh, Row, that's right. I think that's right next door, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have not been to, actually, no, that's not true. My sister and I went to Row Fusion, I think when they first opened up. It had changed hands a few times, and yeah, that was delicious. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you all the places in Sierra Madre right now.
Well, so I think it was you only had one in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what would be your second one?
So I want to say I have not been to the location, but we had a gentleman come up and do he does a pop-up in Altadena, and it's called Bevel Coffee, and his name is Kevin, and he came to one of our events and served his coffee there, and look up Bevel Coffee on Instagram and see where he mostly is in Altadena, and in front of I want to say a pizza place.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, the coffee is just so good. His lattes. He reached out to the Pack Station a while back, and we got connected, and so I went to, when he was at a farmer's market out, I want to say in El Monte. I went out there, and just to kind of, I wanted to be able to say that the coffee's good. I'm a big coffee drinker, and I'm like, coffee? Yes, let me go check it out. And I went and met him, and I tried the coffee there in El Monte, And I didn't taste it until I started walking away. And then I turned back around. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. The latte I had was, I can't remember, it was some lavender flavor. And it was delicious. So when we had him come for an event, he had his coffee set up there and served all night. And people were just like, this is really amazing. And I'm like, yeah, he does a really great job with how, he processes everything and how he makes it. And he's very passionate. And man, if you're a coffee lover and you want to try something, that isn't necessarily being served everywhere else, go check Kevin out at Bevel Coffee, because it's very delicious. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah. I have heard of him. I've seen him on social media, and a friend had recommended checking him out. So what was a third place?
Third place, man. I mean, it's so hard to pick three, but I would say the third place is Lucky Baldwin's in Sierra Madre, in Kirsting's Court. I spend a lot of time there with my running group. So we start our runs on Tuesdays. I haven't gone as much lately, but when I do head down there, we meet up in front of Lucky Baldwin's, and we do a loop around town, going from Sierra Madre Boulevard to Santa Anita, up Santa Anita to Grandview, down Grandview to Michelinda, down Michelinda, back down through Sierra Madre, and we meet back at Lucky Baldwin's, and we sit down. Probably anywhere between 8 to 15 people will sit down and we'll enjoy dinner together and a beer or whatever. And they always accommodate us. Shout out to Lisa at Lucky Baldwin's. They always accommodate us so beautifully, and just a beautiful local place. I had been going there since, before, when I first moved into Sierra Madre early on, and so it's just kind of a hometown place for me.
It's a bar, right?
It's a pub. They just serve beer. And they serve food, so they have, burgers. They've just kind of redone their menu, so things are a little bit different. If you've gone in the past, they've got their menus a little bit changed up, but their food is always great. They're always very accommodating, and it's just a like I said, like a good hometown place. I've been there for so many years, going there, and always, again, usually when we go, the people in front of you and behind you is somebody and
Do you know, is there a second location?
They have another one in Pasadena.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
in Old Pasadena, I think.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I think there's three. I think there's one in Old Pasadena, and then there's one east of PCC on Colorado.
Yeah. The one in Old Town is right on Fair Oaks, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then there's one on Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, the Sierra Madre one is the one that I go to pretty regularly. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing those with us and our audience. So, Maggie, if people want to get in touch with you, we're going to actually push this episode forward in advance of hopefully what is the opening of the Chantry again. But if people want to get in touch with you or support the Pack Station, what's the best way to do that?
So we have a website. It's adamspackstation.com. That's Adams, ADAMS, Pack, PACK, Station, STATION.com. And if you go to the website, there are places to be able to, if people want to financially support us, we still have places you can donate. We don't have any merchandise currently, but if once we do open, that's going to be a big support. If for any reason the opening date gets pushed back even further than July, we'll probably have to do another fundraiser. So keep an eye on that kind of information, because it would be great to be able to, those who haven't heard about our fundraisers, to have people come and experience that if they haven't already. We have sold out of our fundraisers, which is a great problem to have. Mm-hmm. But it'd be great to be able to, get new people up there. And if we do have another one of those events, that we'll know by the end of May if we're going to do that. And that you could find out on our website as well. We do have an Instagram and a Facebook page. I haven't posted a lot on there because it's still unclear about, what's exactly our date to open, even though I know when the closure order ends. But I don't want to mislead anybody in thinking it's going to be the first at this point, just because I see how how things are not moving as fast as, construction. Sometimes it doesn't go as planned.
Sure.
So, but it will be, I've been told by the forest, it will be this summer, and it will be within hopefully June, July. And we're counting on it, but we will be prepared for if it doesn't happen. But that's, I think, the best way to get a hold of us would be through that. The best way to get a hold of me would be either Instagram or Facebook through Messenger, and that way I get that notification right away. I'm still working on how to get my notifications.
Okay. Well, Maggie, thank you again for coming on the show and sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we do appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Well, there you go, another episode in the books. I like I said, Chantry has a really special place in my heart, and I definitely learned a lot today, both about Maggie and the Pack Station, and I hope that you did as well. Maggie definitely has a passion for local things and local business, and that's clear. And I hope that you guys will get out there and support the Pack Station, but more than that, just to take care of the area that we call home here in the San Gabriel Valley. Well, thank you for spending this time with us. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. And as always, you can check out our full catalog of episodes on our website, mysgv.net. Sign up for my newsletter. You can hear from me. I give you some behind-the-scenes look at what's going on here in the San Gabriel Valley, and also preview upcoming guests. So check out my newsletter as well. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on the My SGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Russell Mono and edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice matter. No, kind matter.